Dear students, in this lecture, we're going to have some look at some types of genre components at language and terms levels. And this is going to be a kind of a session, or this is the class, and it is the class belonging to or as a part of the 20th Century English Literature 1 that we are currently trying to learn about. So it is the sort of um, pushing you to remember the things that you already learned in your previous semesters, because genre and literary terms, these have already been covered up in your previous semesters and courses. So this is going to be sort of repetition, I must call, but it's going to give you kind of revival of your memories and your understanding and insights so far you had developed in the semesters past. um, so that the understanding, eventually is going to help you to engage yourselves into the modern poetry, and you will definitely be benefited by these ideas, because in understanding the poetry or different kind of aspects, um, poetry as a genre and other aspects into poetry that we would be exploring, discussing, talking about. So understanding would be very easier if you have once again repeated these the senses that you must have about genre and genre components, at least at language and terms levels. So let's move on to the first slide and let's see what we have got there to talk about. So uh, the first question that we are supposed to get started with is, what is genre? Um, genre, as you have already understood from previous classes and previous uh, courses, it is a type of text of any length. So length and text, these two key terms. So it is a type of text. So type, text, and length. So these three key terms are the point of departure, or you could say these three key terms constitute the idea about genre. So if we split up these three terms into further points and understanding it, we can say that a genre has language, a genre has language, and this language again may be of two types, like the language may be of spoken, or language may be written form, of written form. So the two types of language forms, one is spoken language and the other is the written language. If the genre is going to be essentially spoken genre, then the language used in that genre is going to be spoken form. And if the genre is a written genre, then the language is going to be the language used in that genre is going to be of written form. And then a genre has length, particular length. Not all the genres have the same length. All right, a poem, it has a shorter length, while a novel has much more, um, you know, uh, much more. I mean, a novel is much more, um, much longer than a poem. So length of a poem and the length of a novel are not the same. So genre has their different lengths, and um, yeah, uh, lengths and other aspects differing and differentiating aspects. It has structures, definitely. A genre has some structures, and that these structures could be found out, that could be explored, sometimes at the surface level, or the internal, external structures and the internal structures. So internal structures are basically within the text, and it involves language, paragraphing, sectioning, and other presentation of the text. And overall organization there could be that we might sort out as the surface structure, right, that we can at a go have a look at. At the time of the primary engagement with the text, the overall organization or the structure that comes into our notice is called the external structure or external organization. So if you go deep into the further segments and smaller units of a text, then it means that you're going into the internal structures. But at the first moment that we engage with the text and the primary impression about or whatever as a text comes into our notice immediately, it's going to give us a kind of suggestion of the primary and primarily noticeable structure of the text. And this primarily noticeable structure of a text is called um, the surface structure or the external structures or external organizational feature of a genre. And an example of a genre could be the easy example is a poem, right? A piece of poem is an example of a genre. So let's carry on. So now, after having some definitional thing about genre, we have to look um, at the types of genre, how many types of genres there could be, um, and yes, so and 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 genres actually could be of different types in terms of different um, perspectives. Like if we uh, uh, take genre as to be um, belonging to literature or non belonging to literature, right? So in terms of literary features, we could put genres into two types. One is literary genre, and the other is non-literary genre. So, as the term suggests, literary genre are the genres or the types of text that are categorized as literature, or that we shout out as the literary pieces. In contrast, non-literary genre are the types of text that we do not consider as literature, or like novels, dramas, and all other types of literary texts. So non-literary genre definitely it again means different types of text that we use in our day-to-day life for professional purposes, but they are not really considered as the pieces of literature, right? In the traditional sense. um, so two examples, as you can see over here, two examples of two traditions or two types, um, just we had a look at, like literary genre or non-literary genre. So one example is novel, right? It is shown here like it's a literary genre. And Facebook masses. So this is a very common thing we do in our day-to-day messaging, or in our day-to-day communication. Youngsters and almost people of all ages, we do this kind of stuff like Facebook messaging. So I write something as a form of message, and I send it out to the targeted people, and I also receive some replies again in the form of message. So this is going to be one kind of text. All right. We sometimes even term these messages as text messages. All right. So this is one kind of text, and any kind of text is like we at the beginning said, it's a type of genre. So Facebook message is a kind of genre, of course. It has language, it has length, it has structures, choice of language, and all other aspects. But it's not that much. Every pitch of Facebook message is not that much long. So it is. similar to day-to-day spoken communication. All right, and is further some of the further aspects of Facebook messages could be like the language that you use in Facebook messages. It depends on the interpersonal relationship. Like if the message is going to be communicated or sent and received between two people who assume a type of interpersonal relationship, like they are two friends, then this language choice is going to be very, very informal, as they would do in their face-to-face communication or conversation. So as Facebook message is not really uh, sorted out or categorized as literary piece, so this is going to be definitely and clearly non-literary genre, right? So these two major categories of genres there could be, like literary genre and non-literary genre, right? And we also took out two examples. One is novel, which is literary genre, and Facebook message, which is an example of non-literary genre. So let's move on to the next slide. Subtypes of literary genres and components. Actually, these are the subtypes of genres, because the two types that we just talked about, literary and non-literary, they are the major two types of genres. But one further major um, types of genres are missing here. Uh, that is, spoken genre and written genre. All right. So spoken genre and written genre, these are two again, two major categories of genres. So there are many spoken genres, and there are a lot more written genres, both literary and non-literary. So every kind of spoken text, like a conversation, like a speech, like a debate, um, like a discussion. All right. So these are all spoken, and they are spoken genres. But they're like a song, um, like a singing, or like a song, or like a poetry recitation, like a debate, like a talk show, like a telephone conversation. So these are all very common, and easy examples of spoken genres. And written genres, these are again very common, and we can easily identify written genres, right? So every type of written text could be sorted out as the written genres. So the written and spoken, these two sorts of genres are the major two divisions of genre types. And in this slide, as we can see, we're going to talk about some subtypes of genre or literary genres or components, like poem, drama, tragedy, comedy, tragicomedy, story novel, epistolary novel, epic, elegy, dramatic monologue. All right, these are we can go enough further, go on and on with some, come up with some other types of subgenres, and even mm, uh, one subgenre may have some other further subgenres, right? So poem, a poem could be poem. First of all, we might sort it out as, let's say, the literary genre, and a poem is usually a written genre. And again, this could be further divided into subgenres, like a poem could be subdivided into epic or elegy or dramatic monologue. So this three here, these three genres actually come under the subgenre of poem, all right, or poetry. So a poem could further be divided into many further subgenres, and three major are already pointed out here, as you can see: epic and an elegy, dramatic monologue. All right, these are all are poems, types of poems, meaning types of text, meaning types of genres, right? And then drama. Similarly, you could say that drama is a kind of literary genre, a literary genre, and of course this is a subgenre of literature. But this could further be divided into three, four more category of genres like tragedy, and then comedy, and then tragicomedy. All right. Tragicomedy and comedy and tragedy. These three subgenres um, or further, types of text that actually come under the umbrella term, which is drama or play. We could All right, so similes and metaphors, these two, these are not actually genres, but they are, as we can see, like we pointed out on the very first slide, like we're going to talk about some genre components, but the discussion would be, limited at the language levels and the term levels, right? So we have covered talking about the these things, uh, and now let's move on to the most important language level components that come into be used in different types of genres, like in poems, in novels, in all other sorts of written genres. Similes and metaphors are commonly used. So you have to, if you have to understand a piece of poem, uh, very clearly, and with an ease, then we have to have some ideas about the uses of similes and metaphors. Similes and metaphors, whatever terms you might want to think about. The first thing we have to understand is like similes and metaphors. They are simply language. So uh, you could say that these are some names, but basically they are language. So simile, it is going to deal with language use, and metaphors again is the same thing. So we have to understand, we have to remember that genre, that is a type of text, and the main element over genre is language. But the use of language in a genre is not always the same. Like a genre is not going to take in language in under one single forms, right? So in one single length, let's say a genre is not going to use under one uh, category of sentences. Like a genre is not going to purely use on the assertive sentences altogether in itself. So it's going to make a variety of choices and variety of styles and fashions of the use of language. So it will be involving assertive sentences and then interrogative sentences, exclamatory sentences, and not only the sentential elements. There could be other types of linguistic, play. It's a kind of play or game with language that the writer, exploits in the genre he or she writes. So that is why if we want to go with an ease, in dealing with the language used in a genre, then we have to have a very clear cut ideas about some styles and techniques that we do with language. One is similes, and the other is metaphors. All right. So these two terms, I think, are very basic literary terms that you already have acquainted yourselves with in your previous semesters and in your previous lectures and courses. It's going to be a bit repetition, but it's going to be useful again because you would be very soon engaging yourself um, in reading different kinds of genres, especially poetry. And poetry, frequently uses similes and metaphors. So without having a good understanding about the uses of language that we term as similes, and the uses of language that we term as metaphors, without having a very good understanding about similes and metaphors, or the uses of this sort of language in poetry, then it's going to create a kind of difficult understanding whatever kind of poem you engage in reading, reciting, and understanding. It's not a bad thing that we are going to repeat talking about and understanding similes and metaphors. So, as you can see, a simile is a figure of speech that directly compares two things. Similes differ from metaphors by highlighting the similarities between two things using comparison words like as or like or so or than, while metaphors create an implicit comparison. So direct comparison. All right. So how do you um, understand this directness? Like if you see that two different things are compared in a sentence, and the comparison involves the uses of some connectors like as so in the sentence, then you could get a kind of suggestion that this comparison is going to be a simile, an example of simile, right? Let's say here goes an example. So yeah, take a look and try to understand. He fought as a lion. So let's yeah. Um, I just deleted the repetitions. He fought like a lion. So he fought like a lion. He fought like a lion. So he and lion, they're two different things, but there's been a comparison in here. Like he is a human being and a lion is an animal, so there couldn't be any comparison. Uh, you know, uh, at the first sight, but the comparison has been made here. So he has fought so vigorously, so strongly that is a kind of representing feature of a lion. So that's where the comparison comes in. So he fought like a lion and a human being. They have been compared, and this connector um, has been used in this sentence. So this is a kind of marker. This is a kind of marker of similes. So this is an example of similes. So we could say that simile is a comparison between two different things, and it is a direct comparison, and the directness is actually understood just if we find out some words like as so then, right? So if we see a sentence has any of these words, then it's likely to be an example of a simile. Metaphor, on the other hand, a metaphor is a figure of speech that, for the rhetorical effect, directly refers to one thing by mentioning the other. It may provide clarity of identify hidden similarities between two different ideas. So metaphor is almost a very similar thing. It's similar to simile. Both compare two different things, um, and the basic identifiable differences, like in simile, in the example sentence of a simile, you must be finding a word, namely like, as, so, or then. But in an example sentence of a metaphor, you would not usually find this kind of use of word, namely like. You cannot find this word in the example sentence of a metaphor. You cannot find as or so or then or while in the example sentence of a metaphor. But both of the types of language use, I mean simile and metaphor, they are both in the action of comparing two different things. And take a note that frequently will encounter, you will find out, you will find, you will see, um, you know frequent uses of similes and metaphors in poetry. It's not an accident that you may be coming across different, I mean, huge number of metaphors and similes all through a piece of poem. All right. So get a kind of uh, mental ready to meet, different kinds of uses and styles of language, including similes and metaphors, when you get involved in reading uh, English poetry. So yes, so the last but not least, all right. So this is hyperbole, another type of literary terms that we might be uh, coming across when we engage in reading any kind of literary text. So this is not a genre, but we will be finding. Um, I mean, this is a genre component. It would be used, or it is used in different the kinds of genres, maybe poem, maybe in novels, in dramas, whatever. All right, even in a spoken genre, see, we um, uh, off and on use this term. All right. So hyperbole again, it is the use of language, right? But a different use of language, different style or different choice of language that we make in our spoken discourse or spoken genre or spoken text or in written text as well. So how to define hyperbole? Um, it is to exaggerate an idea or a feeling or a notion in a way that sounds unbelievable or unrealistic. It has, however, a meaning of emphasis or a stress on the seriousness of the feeling or situation, etc. For example, he was so angry. See, he was so angry that he would eat John alive. Right. So here's a feeling. All right. He has a kind of feeling. The subject, he of the sentence. The subject of the sentence is he. So he is having a kind of feeling, and the feeling is anger, right? But the level of his anger was so high that it is being, expressed or described in a exaggerating way. All right. Um, that he would eat John alive, right? So he would eat John alive. So eating a human being by another human being is kind of unbelievable or unrealistic. But the use of this sort of language suggests that the feeling of anger was so high. So one kind of seriousness of the feeling is suggested by this kind of use of exaggeration with language. All right, he would eat John alive. This is impossible, practically speaking. But why does the writer choose this language? Just to emphasis or a stress on the seriousness of the feeling of anger of the man, uh, that is he. So this way, sometimes we make choices of language, and we put that in a style that sounds like unbelievable or sounds like unrealistic, but we just do that in order to make a kind of accent on the seriousness of a feeling or a situation or a belief or an idea or a notion. So yeah, that's it. I think you have developed some uh, understanding, or you have uh, just remembered back the things you understood in your previous semesters. So your understanding is going to be kind of alive once again, and it will help you and push you to successfully land genre, right? Successfully engage in reading a genre, and understanding would be maximized based on the understanding you have so far developed after this lecture, and also in the previous courses, from the previous courses. So altogether, it's going to be make you comfortable about different kinds of uses of language and different genres, um, and you could easily um, engage yourself in the act of reading of any kind of genre, especially literary genres, and more specifically, you'd be comfortably engage yourselves in reading English poetry that we are going to um, do in this semester under this course of 20th century English literature 1. So that's it. Thank you very much. And we'll be coming up with uh, new topics ahead, right, in some other video lectures. So take care. Bye bye.